When I look at it, I am more disturbed by what I see happening in this country than anything I see outside of it. It is very clear to me what we are doing outside the country, in my opinion, is preordained. This is what they want to do. They want to reset the system because we're 155 trillion in debt with 5 trillion in assets, of which 40% of that is student debt. The largest asset in this country is student debt. We are a banana republic at 130% GDP, debt to GDP. We are sailing in a sea of uncharted waters, and the final chapter is yet to be written.
Renowned precious metals analyst Andy Schectman recently commented on the state of the United States economy and the general well-being of the country that once thrived on unity, progress, and the importance of hard work. Andy likens the U.S. to a banana republic, a term popularly used to refer to a country or state that is politically and economically unstable and getting uncomfortably close to the edge of complete ruin. The United States, the world's largest economy and most powerful and influential country, should be everything but a banana republic. But the events of the past few years leave room for us all to be overly cautious and proactive. Andy believes the increasing divide along racial, political, gender, and social lines in the United States is a part of the massive plan to bring about a reset and enforce the acceptance of a central bank digital currency, CBDC. This is despite the many criticisms and reservations against a digital currency that can easily be manipulated. It's going to be a game of divide and conquer, and they have successfully achieved the first part of their goal already. When this reset hits, Andy is certain that the fallout is going to affect us all, but it would affect some more than others. According to the renowned metals analyst, those who will be most affected are those who place all their wealth and sustenance in the system, those who so completely trust the government to keep up the charade of maintaining a forever strong and buoyant economy that they are not seeking shelter in assets like gold and silver, despite decades of warnings. In addition to the piling internal threats, including the country's mounting debts, increasing social crisis, there are lots of external threats rising against the U.S. economy. Andy believes the threats were purposely orchestrated by decision-makers in the U.S. to further worsen the situation and enrage other countries to turn against the dollar. He gives the example of the sanctions that were announced against Russia last year and the ripple effect that has had on the de-dollarization efforts by countries like Russia, China, India, and Saudi Arabia. We will now bring you clips from Andy's recent interview with SatPulse. Please watch, share, and like this video. Also, ensure you drop your comments and observations in the comments section. Subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Thanks and enjoy.
Since 1974, it is the protection of the Saudi kingdom that has given us the petrodollar. In other words, Saudi Arabia said, fine, for the protection, we will denominate through OPEC globally oil in dollars. And for really the better part of 50 years, every country in the world has had to stockpile dollars to own oil. It's created a synthetic demand for the dollar. And when we signed, or Biden signed an executive order, right when he took office, saying that by 2030 we'll be 50% green and by 2050, 85% green, he signaled to Saudi Arabia, hey, we don't need you anymore. We're going a different direction. So if you wanted to lose the world reserve status as the lead economic advisor this country talks about, the first thing you do is weaponize the dollar. The second thing you do is push away Saudi Arabia, but it's bigger than that. Look what's happening inside this country. I'm a patriot. I grew up in this country, not wealthy. I started a company with my father in 1990 on a wing and a prayer. My dad's middle name is Miles. His best friend who lent us $60,000 to start the company, his middle name was Franklin. And we come from nothing in a one-room office, borrowing money to start a company on a dream. And we recently eclipsed $9 billion in sales. So I want you to understand, by never having a customer complaint, mind you, that I love this country. But I do believe if you are not a contrarian, you will be a victim. And the one common denominator that all three, gold, silver, and Bitcoin have, it's a contrarian play. And I think you must look at the world in a different light right now, because what I see, not even with the mismanagement of the dollar and the world reserve status, if it were just that, I could deal with it. Americans do real well when their back is against the wall, to figure a way out of it. But when I see what they're doing to this country, to the judicial system, to law and order, to the way that we have to celebrate. I come from a world where my parents were hippies. I learned to respect everyone and everything. You know, you want to do drugs behind your door, do it. You want to, whoever you're with, when your doors are closed, I don't care. What you dress up as, I don't care. But now we're forced to celebrate it. And this whole thing of erosion of the fabric of this country, law, order, the nuclear family, all of these things that we have to bow down to, it's eroding what this country stands for. And more than anything, it has eroded our ability to be united in a common cause. And that is to build back or to do something great, to take back our country, our liberties, our freedoms. All of these things, the World War II vets, that era, well, they were all united and patriotic and believed in this country in a way that is lacking right now. And I'm concerned. I'm very afraid. I will tell you this. It doesn't matter what you're in. It doesn't matter if it's Bitcoin, if it's silver, it's gold. As long as it's not completely and totally in dollars, you have a leg up from everybody else. Before this is all said and done, Patrick, I honest to God believe that he or she who loses least wins. We're all going to get hit on this. If things collapse the way that I think they will, and I think the way they want them to incite the Great Reset, to level the playing field so most of the public who lost everything, remember, most of the debt's owed to us, says, fine, I'll take the CBDC as long as you're making me whole, I'll sign on the dotted line. There has to be an event that makes people want the CBDC. And I really do believe that is what they are trying to orchestrate by culling of the banks, by fraying the world reserve status, the petro status, and dividing this country, who really doesn't have what it takes right now, I think, to be united, to push back against this. All they need to do is have that event, blow up the market.
During the interview, Andy also comments on the increasing de-dollarization trend across the world and what this means for the United States economy. At this point, there is no doubt that the rest of the world is waking up to the possible consequences of being overly dependent on the U.S. dollar. Even U.S. allies risk being cut off if they make moves that are deemed unsatisfactory by the United States. Nobody wants to be dependent on a country which last year, with the Russia sanctions, proved just how foolish it is to be dependent on it. As a result, countries are not just reducing the amount of U.S. dollar in their reserves, moving to gold and other currencies, they are also reducing their dollar dependence by refusing to use the greenback for international transactions. In 2023, we've seen lots of examples of this with France, as Saudi Arabia, China, India, and other countries, especially BRICS members and their allies. Let's get back to Andy's interview as he gives his opinions on the U.S. dollar, its status as a global reserve currency, and increasing de-dollarization across the globe.
When you start to see transactions, you don't have to be a reserve currency to erode the value of the dollar's reserve status, because all of the transactions are being done in other currency. As an example, India just did a large deal for oil and paid in rupee. You have France, who did a massive liquid natural gas deal, one of the largest ever, with the United Arab Emirates, paid for it in yuan. You have Brazil, the second largest exporter of corn in the world, striking deals with China where they will trade in real and in yuan when they exchange commodities with one another. So you are seeing an erosion in settlement currencies or in settlement transactions to be done in local currencies. This is not even talking about the upcoming or at soon to be BRICS settlement currency, which at some point could become a reserve currency simply by building a bond market. And we built our bond market in World War I based upon patriotism, support the war effort, buy war bonds. That's how, well, if you have what could amount to at some point here north of 40 countries who've already expressed interest, and some accounts say even as high as 60, they won't all be admitted yet, but this is a growing process. This has been going on for 17 years. This isn't just started out of nowhere. So you have a situation where patriotism and breaking free from the centuries-old Western hegemony would be something that I think would spur patriotism amongst those countries. But even if it's just a settlement currency, and ultimately, to your point, the Russian finance minister, Sergei Lavrov, something to that extent, has told us for over a year now that we would see a basket of commodities backing a new currency system. And what did they reclassify gold as? That being the Bank of International Settlements, the most powerful bank in the world. They reclassified gold as the world's other tier one reserve asset next to US dollars. So there's no question to me but that ultimately gold will play a pivotal role in backing a new system that lacks credibility, that lacks transparency. One of the big knocks against those countries is who's going to trust China, who's going to trust Russia, who's going to trust those countries. But that's where blockchain technology, distributed ledger technology, and gold using or some form of commoditized basket pegged to a distributed ledger, to a blockchain, to show the immutability, to show the veracity of whatever this new settlement currency becomes. That is the trust. That the glue is the gold. The rallying cry is breaking free from the Western hypocrisy, the Western hegemony, the sanctions, the freezing of the Forex reserves. All of those things are pushing these countries into making these declarations like Putin just did right there, break free of the Western settlement and settle with our own local currencies. And I think this is a trend that is now firmly in motion. And I don't think we've even begun to see the extent of what it will ultimately look like.
Though no one is actively considering the severity of the impact on the economy if the dollar suddenly loses its reserve currency status, everyone agrees that the impact will be particularly severe and dramatic. In a future where the dollar is no longer the reserve currency, the share of U.S. Treasuries owned by other central banks and foreign entities will reduce drastically. According to data from the Treasury Department, central banks and other government entities have owned between 50 to 75% of foreign-owned debt over the past 2 decades. Currently, foreign countries own $7.4 trillion in treasuries, about 24% of total U.S. debt. What happens when all of this burden begins to slowly return home? Borrowing costs will skyrocket, making it more difficult for businesses to thrive and for the economy to grow. The stock market will also take a huge hit. This is why people like Andy Schectman are warning investors to seek shelter in assets like gold and silver. Do you agree with Andy that this is all a big plan to effortlessly bring about a reset and enforce further control over Americans and our resources? Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Also, ensure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos. Thanks for watching.